Dr. Ish Major. What's up,
Yes,
man? It's been
sir.
a long time coming. Thank you for joining me.
It has. It has. Listen, we all nobody knows this guy, but we all owe this to Trip Wiley. He put this
Hey,
together.
give old Trip Wiley a
Oh
shout
yeah.
out. But no, Trip's awesome. He's been a big fan of the podcast and a great friend of mine. And I know y'all been able to
Yep.
connect a lot recently through Crossroads and the work you're doing there. And what we all three have in common is we grew up in Greenville.
That's right. That's
What,
right. We're all
what
we're
was
all Carolina boys.
That's right. What was life like for you growing up?
Well, and it's interesting. So I actually didn't grow up in Greenville. I grew up further down in the Low Country, down near Beaufort, Hampton,
Oh,
right
okay.
down near Charleston. Yeah, but always Carolina. But it was interesting, man. I grew up, poor and black in South Carolina is an interesting perspective, right?
Hmm.
But a very big family, five sisters, eight aunts, and we all lived like literally within shouting distance from each other. So it was me and my dad and my brother there, and we just as the testosterone bearing humans in the house, we just kind of held up in the corner and just shut up and listen a lot. We just let them take it. But it was really cool, man. I always say we didn't have much, Sam, but we had big hearts and a small bank account.
Hmm.
But the hearts were so big we didn't even bank account stuff didn't even matter, and we just didn't notice. So it was very cool. My mom and dad were together for like 56 years, man, before we got
Wow.
9 years ago. Yeah, and so it was just a very cool thing to be able to grow up and see. It's a house where everybody loved each other. I'm not saying we always got along because it's family, right? And you're gonna
Hmm.
that many people, but today, we're all friends, right? All my brothers and sisters, we're friends. We enjoy talking to each other. We enjoy hanging out with each other, that kind of thing. So, my mom would always say, we don't have any money to leave you guys, but we're gonna leave you with the gift of each other, right? And you
Man.
guys, when we're gone, you guys will have each other. So it was just a cool thing. Yeah.
That is to think about it, like all the, family stories you hear and just like sad stories you hear too. But to think growing up, a lot of times it doesn't matter about the money if you got the love,
Yep. Yep. It really
which
does.
which is sad because a lot of families, don't have the love, but they might have the money and they're broken at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, I mean, it's like you ever know, and you notice this. You've talked to hundreds of folks. It seems like when you grow up with that particular privilege, when it's the greenbacks, the money,
Hmm.
uh, then the other stuff seems to use. A lot of folks seem to really struggle with the other stuff, right? With the connection, with the am I lovable outside of that, right? Is that the only thing that makes me who I am? But it's so funny. Man, I always tell folks I didn't know I was broke until I got to college and my first semester, right? And so we're going home for fall break, and everybody's packing up their clothes, and I'm like, "Why y'all packing all your clothes? We're coming back in a couple weeks." They're like, "Oh, well, we got to go home and get our winter clothes and come back." I was like, "Oh." What is this? What is this of which you speak? Winter clothes? They're like, yeah, you don't have winter clothes? Well, I got a coat that I'm gonna bring back, but that's it.
Where'd you go to college?
USC, man, good old Gamecocks. Well, yeah, you can see the chicken in the back. Good old Gamecocks, man.
There
Yeah,
we go. Let's go.
14
I
years, dude. 5 years, 4 years undergrad, 5 years med school, 5 years residency. So I'm a lifer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, I was about to say because I knew you went there with med school.
Mm-hmm.
And did you meet Rupert day one?
Day one, 7:50ish in the morning, walking down the hallway to our first class. Group of guys standing out there. I was like, "Hey guys, I miss." Dude looks up. He's like, "Hey, Ish, I'm Rupert." Off to the races from there.
Dang, let's go. And
Yeah,
did you move to Greenville after med school?
I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. First
Gotcha.
job was in first job was in Greenville. Just fell in love with the place and been going back and forth ever since. I've lived a few different places. Miami, New York, obviously spent a bunch of time in LA, but Greenville always feels like home. It's like I always come back and it's always good, man. Yeah.
Very cool. When you were growing up, when did you start to put together the idea of what you wanted to do in life? Or like how did, wanted to go to med
Oh
school, wanted to
wow.
be a psychiatrist? Like how did that evolve?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. The answers a couple different answers, right? So when I was 3, I overdosed on some of my mom's medication. and she dropped a bottle of pills on the floor one day, and at 3 years old, looked like they were like these little round green pills.
Mhm.
Hell, looked like candy to me. So I crawled under the table. I was like gobbling them up, and next thing I know, I'm waking up in a hospital bed. You know, so I was in a coma for like a week plus,
Dang.
and just had some really interesting type of out of body experiences. Um, but ever since that, I was always a sickly kid. So every year, 2 3 times a year, whatever's going around, I had it. And I'm in the doctor's office, and I'm sick unto death, and I'm home from school. Probably why I like doing TV so much, because I watched so much of it growing up, because I was always hardly ever at school, you know. But I always knew that all I knew was, hey, our doctor was Dr. Kaiserling back in the day, old Jewish guy in Buford. Loved, and it was a riot, right? Literally should have been doing stand up somewhere, but he just happened to help you. Yeah, you would come in his office, he'd make you laugh, and you'd feel better. And so I just knew, hey, I got sick, I don't feel good. I go see this person, they help me feel better, and then I get to come back home. And so I was like, okay, that would be a cool thing to do. And then my mom was always sick; she had lupus, and so she was always back and forth in the hospitals in New York, where they knew how to treat it a little bit better. And so I wanted, and so as a kid, sitting in the waiting rooms and all this stuff, and I'm like picking up all these things, trying to figure out, okay, what could be going on with my mom, what's happening that's taking her away from me. And so for me, part of it was, I wanted to save her, because it was a very selfish thing, and I didn't want her to have to go to the hospital for 2 or 3 months at a time, because I wanted her to be home with me. I was a kid. I had horrible separation anxiety, and so from there, that's kind of how I got the idea in my head. Hey, this is an important thing to help folks with, because it could help me, and so that's really where it started, man. Just the ideas of being a doctor in general.
Sure. I mean, you can imagine being a kid, like, that must have, like, an amazing impact on you, seeing your mama, like, have to go away and spend all this time in the office. I know if it was my mom, man, you were doing, I would've been doing everything I could to try and
Right,
figure out to get her more
right.
time with me.
Right, exactly. And so as a kid, you feel helpless. It's like, what can I do? Okay, well, I can learn about this thing, this lupus thing, and help her try to manage that. And so that's what I would that's what I did, and that's where the real burn first started.
Do you think, and you kinda referenced this at the very beginning, but the time around all your aunts
Uh
and
huh.
your sisters, like, and I have a sister and a mom, and, like, I feel like I was on the better end around my male friends, like, understanding what women want, how to understand females, but I can only imagine having, what is that, 13 around you?
Woo!
That must have been wild.
Woo! Wow. And our house was the hub, right? So we had that happening. And then back in the day, I'm old, they would do, the ladies in the neighborhood would do this thing called a quilting bee, right? And so now we got that, and now we got all the other ladies from the neighborhood coming into the house a couple times a week doing quilting. And I mean, and the gossip is flying, and you're getting all this insight. But yeah, you definitely it definitely helps you show up in the world a little bit differently, right? Because we
Mhm.
present differently. Men and women, we present differently, and men are as more of the traditionally, that masculine energy is more of the outgoing thing, and that feminine energy is more of the taking in the world and processing it, and then giving you the thing back. And so it definitely taught me how to listen, for sure, and how to
Yeah.
be really, really in tune with with what people are feeling, right? Empathy. When we talk about empathy, and especially these days as we are going through this empathy drought in this country, empathy is. Everybody thinks, well, empathy is, I just feel bad for you. No, that's nothing. That's sympathy, and that doesn't do anybody any good, right? Empathy is simply me being able to reflect back to you what it is I see on your face, right? And so if you grew up in a house full of women, or a community full of women like I did, nobody's more expressive on the planet than a woman, right? And so you read those expressions, and so you can know what they're thinking and feeling before they even say it, right? Or if there's something they're hiding, whereas you and I, guys, we're real good at hiding it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
What? My arm's half hanging off. Oh no, it's nothing. I'll put a band-aid on it with you, right?
I'll
All
be
that
alright.
foolishness. So I think so for me, it got me. The thing I do as a psychiatrist is I look for the thing that people aren't trying to tell me, right? I look for the thing that you're trying to hide,
Yep.
because that's where I know it hurts. And so growing up around a bunch of women, it taught me how to see the thing that they weren't saying, you
Hmm.
know, and then from there be able to go deeper. So yeah, help tons. Definitely shaped me tons. I wouldn't be as good as it as I am at it if not for them for sure.
For sure. I mean, that makes total sense. With going to med school, getting out of school, what was, like, your career path at that moment? How do you figured out you wanted to, work with males and females, work with relationships, dating? Like, what was that evolution?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Everybody's got a different journey, and as we show up as who we are today, we all have these narratives in our head about what their life must have been like, and oh my goodness, and it's nothing usually can be farther from the truth. So for me in med school, I was going to do family practice the whole time,
Okay.
band-aids, cuts, bruises, common colds, and I had this guy in the VA hospital in med school, and he came in, big guy, man, like 6'5", black dude, had just gotten back from, I think it was Iraq at the time, walking with a cane and super depressed. He got injured over there. Couldn't say more than 2 or 3 sentences without just breaking down and bawling.
Wow.
His wife was leaving. He wasn't the guy. When he came back, he wasn't the same guy he was when he left, and she didn't understand who he was anymore. So all this is up falling apart. So we had him in hospital a couple of weeks. I mean, a couple of months. Started medication, doing some therapy. The best I could do at the time. And I'll never forget. I came in on a Saturday morning doing rounds at 6 in the morning, and this guy comes, lights are kind of dim. This guy comes skipping down the hall. He's like, "Hey doc, how you doing, man? Hope everything's great. Appreciate everything you did for me. I'm out of here today." And the guy, he just blew by me, and I'm like, I can't remember who this guy is. I was like, "Who is this guy?" And then it hit me, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's my guy, right?"
Wow.
And it was a totally different human who'd come in there 2 months prior. And so I was like, okay, if this is the kind of difference you can make doing psychiatry, then this is definitely something I could do, for the rest of my life, because it's important, man. If you are happy with who you are, relatively happy with who you are and with the person you love, then no matter what else is happening in your life, it's doable, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. But you could have all the money in the world, biggest house, biggest car, right, greatest body. But if you're not happy with that internal relationship and the relationship with people who are supposed to be loving you, then you're like,
Hmm.
this actually kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And so from there, that's where I figured out I wanted to do psych. Now the relationship stuff came later after some more life circumstances.
Yeah. I'm interested about the psychology of males and females.
Mhm.
When you're talk about, I mean, we hear, I feel like mental health and anxiety are kind of like buzzwords.
Yeah.
And some people might not understand, the actual impact they're having on these individuals. What are some of the most common things you see, or maybe you saw at the beginning, that males and females were dealing with, and if they were different?
Yeah, I think so. That's a great question. The first answer is they are the same, but we manifest them very very differently, right? Our we're a lot of us in this country struggle with depression, a
Hmm.
lot, right? Which is why we like our numbing medication so much. We are about 4% of the world's population, 4 to 5%, but we consume 80% of the opiates. Think
Dang.
think about that number, right? Same thing. 70% of the world's cocaine here. 80% of the world's opiates here. And so,
Dang. That's
it's
crazy.
it's an insane number, right? And the weird part is when you look at the countries that round out the top five, right? It is Russia, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iran, and the United States, right? That's not a list we want to be on, right? So that tells us, for as great as it is here, and it is fantastic, the opportunities to do stuff and be who you really are is amazing.
Hmm.
Nowhere else in the world you're going to find that, but it's still hard, right? Because our pop culture shows up in our life every day, whether it's on our screen, on our TV, and tells us why who we are isn't good enough.
Hmm.
I don't look like Hugh Jackman, right? I don't look like Denzel or Will Smith, right? Right? Oh my gosh, she doesn't look like Halle Berry. She doesn't look
Sure.
right. You know what I mean? She doesn't like Kate Hudson. So am I handsome enough to get
Hmm.
somebody good who's going to love me? Or I don't have that big house on the hill ain't mine, right? I don't have that big, nice, pretty Mercedes. So am I going to be enough?
Yeah,
And so every day there's something that tells us that who we are isn't enough, and that's hard, man. It's hard, and we have a tendency to think it's harder for us than anybody else. Well, I grew up poor and black, so I got you beat, Sam. All right.
sure.
I grew up, right? I grew up a woman in the mountains, so I got all the y'all, whatever that is. But it's hard, man. It shows up and it makes us sad and it makes us anxious that, right, we're not going to be able to have the kind of life we thought. Uh,
Yep,
and so those are two of the main things that just keep showing up, but they manifest in different ways, right? Because it can come out as anger, right? It can come out as arrogance. It can come out as abusiveness, right? Because we just want to close down and detach, right? So it comes out in so many different ways. And depending on who you are, more masculine, more feminine energy depends on how it comes out. But I always try to boil it down to those four basic emotions, right? I don't care what it is you show up and you're showing me, there's only four things you're feeling at any given point in time: happy, sad, fear, surprise. That is it. So,
dang.
right? And so once we can peel back the layers and get to that, but the interesting thing is how it manifests for everybody in your different personality.
When do you think, and this could be, a long history of this in the US or just in people in general, we started using like outside things to deal with them, like for like alcohol
Yeah.
or pills. Like when did that happen? Like why did we stop dealing with them with like a run or like eating healthy or like getting proper sleep?
So I think the first big wave came back in the earlier wars. You know, uh,
No, man.
back as early as the Civil War, right? When folks we know who were here got hurt right in front of us, and then our docs, our nurses had to do something to treat that, right?
Mhm.
Back in the way back in the day, milk of the poppy, right? And the old school stuff. But it's we always think we're doing the newest and latest thing, and we're not, right? Folks been dealing with this for a long time,
Yeah.
and it's been kicking folks' butt for a long time. But I think that was the first really big crush. And then as we get more and more industrialized, we get more and more fancy things. Life gets more and more busy. There are more things out there that people tell us we need. Oh, I didn't know I needed that to be okay. Okay, I'll need to get that, need to get that, need to get this. Probably need to work more, need to go to school, need to make more money. Right? Life gets
Yeah.
really, really busy. And so we've got a lot of numbing medications that a lot of the places don't have, right? We got TV. I can binge Netflix for the
Oh
next
yeah.
8 hours, and I don't have to
Mm.
feel anything, right? I get my gaming chair and I can throw on my favorite video game and I can numb it out for the next 4 hours, right? And so the numbing medicine isn't just the things we're putting in our body; it's the things we're putting in our life, right?
Dang, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Because I usually
Just
think
think about
about it
that.
as like, yeah, like people popping pills or people drinking or people doing other things. But you're right, man. People can just like lay in their bed and watch TV.
Right. Where do people go to get that escape? Right. And there's a healthy way to get there, and then there's a not so healthy way to get there. Right. When I some folks run. One of my best friends in the world is a marathon runner. Franz is like in mid 60s. He just did a half marathon. I'm like, Franz, how's that possible? I'm like, listen, I go from my condo downstairs to check the mail. I come back and I'm like, I'm a little winded.
Come on, Ish. I'm just kidding.
but that's his healthy escape. And so for an hour and a
Mhm.
half a day, he gets to go put in 5, 6 miles, and then he comes back, and it's a nice reset for him.
Oh yeah.
There's a healthy way to get it, but the healthy ways you've got to really be intentional about creating. The more harmful ways are the things that are readily available,
And they're
right?
so easy.
Right? The fries. Can I just get, you know what? Let me get an extra order of fries because they got
Mhm.
some nice serotonin in it. It's gonna make me feel real good, and I can just like veg out after, right? And so comfort, right? Most of us, you're right. I'm looking at you and you're fit, and I know you do some physical training. You right? Most of us, we are comfort eaters. Most of us in this country, right? That's
Yeah.
why
It's like
that's why we have an
70%
obesity
or
problem,
something.
right? Right? We eat the things that help us feel good, right? And then because it helps us feel better and helps us not have to feel the other thing, right?
Mhm.
So whether it's food, whether it's your favorite media thing, right? What are those things that you're putting in your life that help you detach from life, detach from the people who maybe aren't quite loving you like you want them to, or the people who you hadn't quite figured out how you can love them how you think you need to, right? Those are the things that kind of creep in there and really get us into trouble.
You're right, and it's crazy because the healthy solutions are so much harder, I feel like, and they're
Yeah.
like they take a lot of discipline. Because I told you briefly, like, I went through my own journey,
Mhm.
And believe me, when I wasn't feeling good, I was eating too. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? So like I was
Oh yeah.
using those escapes as well. And I work out a lot and people like, "Oh man, you work out a lot." I'm like, "I don't work out to like be physically fit. I
Right.
work out for between the ears."
Exactly.
Basically, because it helps me between the ears so I can do, prepare or perform how I want to during the rest of my day.
Right.
When you sit down with somebody and, no matter where they are, they can be super depressed, have tons of anxiety, it's all different levels. What are maybe 2 or 3 healthy releases you recommend to them almost from the get-go?
From the get go, from the get go. This is something I use with a lot of my folks, and this is something, and I know it works because I use it personally in my life.
Okay.
Because I said as a child, I had horrible separation anxiety, horrible. My principal's like, get that kid checked out because he hadn't done a full day at school in months, so something's happening here. You know? So I've always struggled with anxiety. I've always struggled with the never enough itis. Right? Am I doing
Mhm.
enough? Right? One of my big shame defenses has always been, I'll overwork. I'll outwork everybody, and I'll be overtired. And if people can see how hard I'm working, how tired I am, then I don't have to feel shame about what I don't have. Right? Took me years to figure that out. Years of therapy, right? Life, the whole thing. So one of the things that helped me with my anxiety was this little trick, and I learned this from Tony Robbins actually. And it's a gratefulness exercise, and it sounds so trite, it sounds so
Mhm.
simple, right? But there are emotions in our head that can't coexist with each other, right? And so it is impossible for you to be grateful and thankful while also being fearful. It's impossible,
I
right?
love it.
You can try it. It's impossible. Your mind can't compute those two things at the same time. So whenever my anxiety is peaking up, whenever I'm feeling worried about this next thing that's happening or this next thing that ain't happening, right? I immediately go into, okay, but you know what I'm grateful for? I got a healthy body today. I got
There
a,
you go.
my mind is clear today. I live in sunny Florida and look outside the window. It's like, oh my God, look at this beautiful. I'm going right, and I do that, and in 3 minutes, right? The breathing's calmed down, the heart
Mhm.
rate's calmed down, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it works. And so that's one of the right, and it just sounds so simple because we overlook all these things that we got
Yeah.
to be grateful for every
And
single day.
there's so many of them. Like, you don't
Right,
have to be like, "Hey, I'm grateful for, like, these huge things." Like, I'm grateful for, like, the bed I slept in last
right,
night,
right.
I'm
It
grateful
doesn't have
for
to be the big things. It's usually, hey, you know what? My kid came in and gave me a kiss on the cheek before they went to school. Oh my God,
exactly.
it's like I got a text from my partner, from my wife, my husband, my partner said, "Oh, you know what? Have a good day today." What are those
Mhm.
little things that we just take for granted? You know what I mean? I've got two whole legs and two whole hands, and I got up and I walked to my kitchen where there was food,
Yep.
and I fixed some breakfast today,
Mhm.
right? Because it's those little things that we just like. Oh, okay, it starts running on automatic, but just really be intentional about mining the gold, and the acres of diamonds in your own backyard, because we're sitting on acres of diamonds, but we just don't realize it, man.
Exactly right, and so many people do not have that luxury
Right,
of
right,
waking up and having breakfast.
right,
And I work for, an engineering firm, and we design airflows for buildings, and we
okay,
always are talking about, think how spoiled we are that we can walk into a house and
right,
it can be 70 degrees. You
right,
know what I mean? We have a roof over your head and it's 70 degrees. Like, that
right,
is
right,
insane.
right. And if you want it to be 65, you can
Yep,
make it
that's
65,
right.
right?
And it
You literally get to dial up the weather wherever you are all day
for
long,
sure.
in your car, at your job, at your house. It's insane. That's a cool. I was flying back from Greenville, back down to Florida last week, and it's late, and and Trip and Rupert. We had a long day with Trip and Rupert, and I was like, oh God, I just want to get off this plane and just go get in my bed, man. Take a shower, grab some food, and I was like, and then I was like, but wait a second. I am currently sitting in a flying chair with an aerial view over Miami, Florida. Let me take a second and just really appreciate that. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? It's the
Exactly
little
right.
things, right? It's the little things. Yeah.
That's what we all could do better for sure. Just like take a few moments throughout the day and realize like, how lucky and how fortunate we are to be doing what we're doing. It's it's a little bit of a pivot, but you've had pretty incredible TV career.
Yeah, thank you, thank you,
I
thank you.
mean,
Yeah, yeah,
listen, you've worked with like some of the like most well-known celebrities,
yeah,
influencers, like doing cool work too.
yeah,
Like
definitely.
working on their relationships, working on their marriages. What was your first show and what was it about?
It's so funny, man. My best friend in the world, Magdalene, she sent me. There was this big poster board from the very first show I did in 2000, 2010, 2011. It was called Exile on WeTV with Carmen Electra.
There you go.
Oh, we had this big poster board, the whole display thing, and they were like, oh man, this is still here. I have this. Let me just send that to you. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, wow, man. Now, Sam, listen. Here's what you got to understand. That was my first show. I had zero idea what I was doing. I was psychiatrist, but doing it on TV is a whole different vibe,
Mhm.
man. And I'm literally sitting there. I'll never forget. I'm standing there, and they were like, "All right, Carmen's coming to set." And I'm like, "Okay, all right. I
Let's
guess we're
go.
doing it. I guess this is happening." Right? And she's standing there, and I'm like, "Oh, how's this gonna be? First big time celebrity I've ever met. I hope they're decent and not gonna blow me out of the water. All of these things about why who I am isn't enough for this moment, right?
Yep.
Start playing through in your head all those tapes, and Carmen comes out there, man, and she's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I get to do the show with you. And
Wow.
I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? Because we all have it, and she was so lovely and such a good human, just a nice person to help me with the thing, kind of teach me the ropes. So yeah. Sally Ann Salsano was the executive producer, 495 Productions. She does Jersey Shore, right?
Okay.
And she's like the queen of reality TV, and just learned so much from her, man. But yeah, that was my first right out of the box. Threw me right in the fire.
What was the main premise or the subject of the show?
So for that show, we were taking couples who had broken up, but who hadn't been able to leave each other's lives in a very healthy way. So they were still very toxic, right?
Oh
They
yeah.
broke, right?
That happens. That happens.
It happens. So they were very, very toxic. They'd been broken up, and we brought them back to see, hey, is there something here that we can work out and extract the toxicity and let you guys move on healthily, or do we have to finally cut ties and say goodbye? And so
Mhm.
that was the premise of the show, and it was wild, man. And in typical reality TV fashion, we had the couples come in first, and then 3 or 4 days later, we bring in some super attractive singles just to spice it up a little
Yeah. See how much their feelings really were.
bit.
What, in relationships, because
Yep.
man, no matter who you are, you're gonna have relationships, and, you know, I feel like it's very common for people to be like, dating's so hard.
Yep.
Trying to find the best one so hard for me. Like I can never find the right guy. I can never find the right girl. And I feel like that is kind of true because it is difficult, right? And you meet so many people and we are all human and we're individuals and trying to find your right match is a challenge. What do you think have you seen maybe girls do wrong and guys do wrong when trying to find their significant other?
Oh, I love this question. And I love the way you teed it up, because the way you teed it up is the primary thing we're doing wrong, right? We've all got a love story in our head, right?
Mhm.
I'm too skinny. I'm too tall. I'm too short. I'm too big. I'm too little, right? I'm too dark. I'm too light. I'm too rich. I'm too what? We've all got this reason in our head why who we are isn't enough to find the perfect partner for us who's going to choose to willingly love us,
Mhm.
right? That's our love story. That's our narrative. And so that manifests in our life as some of those things you just said. It's a challenge. Dating is hard. Not a lot of good fish in the sea. Oh, all men are dogs. Oh, right. The pretty girls don't want me, right? All of these things. So the first thing I teach folks is we're gonna erase the tape, right? I'm old school. I remember cassette tapes. We could go back and record over some stuff, right? So
Yep.
now we're gonna record over that, and I'm gonna give you a new mantra, right? We need a new tagline. You need a new dating tagline, because dating is a challenge. That's a sucky tagline, and our brains do not think in the negative. Whatever we tell our brains is what it believes to be true. So if I tell my brain that dating is hard, then my brain is going to be like, yeah, dating is hard. Let's go find some people who help prove that to be true. Right? That's how the brain works.
You'll
And so
seek that out.
right, you're gonna subconsciously seek out folks to prove your love story right. Because your brain is your brain and it wants to work for you. Right? We want to make you a hero. We want to make you right. So I'm going to show you this person, and this person. This one's going to lie. This one's going to cheat. This one's going to steal. And then that's going to confirm for us that dating is in fact hard. And you can be right. And you can live in the certainty that you were right. Because right, that's how our brains work. So let's do a different one. Right? And I have my life coach, Beth Handel. And she's amazing. She's amazing. She's like, Ish, your love tagline sucks. Right? Because I was the same. I was like, oh, it's so hard. But I thought, oh, God. She's like, right now we're going to do a new one. So now my new tagline is, hey, women find me lovable.
Okay.
Right?
I think it's true.
Right? It's like, why not? Right? Why not me? Why not? Right? There's nothing so wrong with me that I can't find someone to love me. So your tagline can't be that. You've got to write, hey, we've got to work on reversing and erasing that script, right? And so what could that be for you? Hey, dating is a game. Dating is a riot. Dating is cool. Dating is fun. Right? Women are open books to me because they tell me stuff and they're vulnerable. Hey, you know what? Men actually aren't jerks. Men are cool, man, whatever that thing could be, just to help you be a little more open and a little more vulnerable. Because when you go into it with the other tagline, it's a challenge, it's hard, it's impossible. All men are dogs, right? Now we got that armor up,
Yep.
right? And we're just waiting for the first glimpse that it's true, that the thing I think is true. And as soon as that's it. Sam, I knew it. Check, please. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Have you found most individuals seek similar things in relationships or similar feelings?
Well, yes and no, right? So we all got those basic 6 human needs, and one of the main ones is one of the top 2 are love and connection, right? We want to be connected. I want to connect with you. I want to connect with this person because ultimately I want this thing called belonging. You know, it's the thing we felt when we were with mom and we were being loved by her. We felt like we belonged to this thing that's larger than just who we are. So I think we all want that, right? Ultimately, we all want to find somewhere where we feel like we belong. It feels like home. Finally.
Sure.
But depending on our personality, is the initial thing we're trying to seek, right? So as humans, we've been taught that who we are isn't enough by many different outlets and many different whether it's religion, whether it's pop culture, whether it's your friends, right? Whether it's life experience, it's like, maybe I'm not. Okay.
Yeah, more probably now than ever, too.
More now than ever, right? Because we can't get away from it 24/7. So depending on who we are and how we show up in life, we're all trying to get whole, right? We're all trying to feel whole. So we're going to naturally gravitate to the person who we feel literally completes that circle for us. So if I'm a little more quiet and reserved in a lot of situations, I'm going to naturally gravitate to somebody who's a little more outgoing, right? Because when we're together, that looks complete and that feels whole, right? And so that's kind of those things we kind of naturally gravitate towards. It's like that whole thing. Why do good girls always like bad boys?
Dang.
Right? Because they know they're nice and they know they have boundary issues and they know they have trouble telling people no. And bad boys ain't got no problem telling people no, right? And putting up a firm boundary. And so it's a natural gravitation because it helps the bad boy be a little bit softer, helps the good girl be a little bit more firm with her boundaries, and together that feels whole for a little while.
Yeah. Is there science or have you seen proof? And it makes sense because I think like me and my wife are like this. Have you seen like kind of that opposites work and attract thing, like be super common?
Yeah, it's a very common thing, right? Because it's interesting to us. We're all trying to, right? We see somebody who's not like us. Our natural assumption is that the world thinks like we think and knows what we know, right? And so when we meet somebody who doesn't think like we think and knows some different stuff than we know, then that's curious to us. That's interesting. We want to know about this. Really? You don't like this and you don't eat that and you don't, wow, oh my God. Right? And so as long as you can keep that spark and that juice, right, and understand, hey, there's always going to be something new to learn from this person,
Cool.
and you're always going to be willing to share it. Not too busy. Not going to play video games for the next 2 hours. Not going to binge the Targaryens for the next 8. Right? As long as you carve out time to share it, then it's a very cool thing. Right? You gotta, because you can have that. And it can be a very very cool thing.
With you've worked with a lot of married couples,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm interested here on two things. The divorce rate I feel like was really high for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going down, but I feel like the age people are getting married is going up a little bit, and I
Yes.
think that might in turn help the divorce rate.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking about that?
So it's interesting, right? We've sat at 48, 49% forever, and then COVID hit,
That's
and
crazy to me too.
right, half, and then COVID hit, and the number went through the roof,
Because you got to
right?
spend time with them.
Right, exactly, and right, we figured out that hey, this our numbing medicines, we ran out of numbing medicine, right? I couldn't sit in the car for 2 hours a day and get my head together in
Mm-hmm.
traffic. I didn't have the work family and my work husband or my work wife to to get a nice fantasy escape. Right, all those things came to a screeching halt, and we had to confront the reality of what our life looked like. And the interesting thing about the divorce rate during COVID when it spiked, it was women who drove it. Women were making those calls.
Wow. The
To
man was at home more. The man was home.
Right, exactly. They were like, "Whoa, wait, hold on." Like,
Nope.
they was like, and so it went up, but you are right, right? So folks now, especially the younger generation, our millennials, they're doing two things that are probably smart, right? They're waiting longer to get
Mm-hmm.
married for sure. They're like, hey, you know what? Honestly, there are some things that I want to do for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? To help me feel a little more complete and more whole in my own life. And I think it's okay for me to go pursue those things. Whereas before, right, growing up, and when you and I grow up, and it's like, oh, you're this age and you're not married yet. Well,
Yeah,
what
for
you doing
sure.
then, right? Why are you still single? Why are you not having babies? And right, that's what we're all doing. And so the millennials like, you know what? Actually, no, I am right. This is a YOLO thing, and I'm not going to miss out on my life. And so they're waiting a little longer, if they're getting married at all, because a lot of them are not. And
Yep.
so in addition to, so we're seeing less prenups, more cohabitation agreements. It's like, hey,
Interesting.
we're going to live together. We're not getting married. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. But I do want to share my life with you, just not in that official way, because people don't get to tell us what that is anymore. And
Yep.
so from that, so that can make the divorce rate number artificially look like it's going down, when the truth of it is a lot of our younger folks just simply aren't getting married, or they're getting
Gotcha.
married much later. Yeah.
Got it. What as males, me and you sitting here,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do better?
How much time you got? But
Not enough. I know
so
that.
right. So the first thing is we can we can admit to ourselves, we can tell ourselves the truth about stuff, right? And the first thing is tell ourselves the truth about how we're feeling, and it is okay for us not to be okay. Because as guys, we think, right, we've been taught, well, you got to be the head of the household, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got to be the leader. You got to, they got to follow your lead. You got to make sure everything is okay. It is okay as a man, somebody with that masculine energy in your
Mm-hmm.
dynamic, to come home, look at your partner and say, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I don't know how any of this works, right? So I'm talking about vulnerability, right? That's the first thing we can just be more vulnerable. Hey, COVID is scary. I don't know what the right thing to do is either, right?
Sure.
Maybe we can figure it out. Hey, you know what? At the end of every month, we seem to have more month than money, and I don't know how to fix that, right? Maybe
Yep.
we can, right? So you don't have to have all the answers. That's the first thing, right? And towards that end, we just got to be more vulnerable. Hey, I'm scared today. Hey, I'm actually kind of sad today, right?
Yep.
You know what? Because don't and for guys in particular, how that shows up, don't give the one word answer. Hey, honey, how's your day? Fine. Right, just right. Don't do that. Just right. Make an agreement with yourself that you're never going to give your partner a one word answer, because they just right. You and I, we can do it because we understand what that means, right? We read guy body language because we're
Mm-hmm.
guys, right? We know the body language, we know the look on the face, we know the posture. When he says fine that way, I was like, oh, I know. right? Here's what we
Yeah.
need to do to help them feel better, right? But in your partner, right? Remember that feminine energy, right? They're there to go along on the ride with you. They want the
Mhm.
process, right? Right? They as guys, we're about the end game, right? We're like Thanos and the end game. We just want the end game. We just want to get there. But that feminine energy wants to be along for the ride. They want to process the thing
Mhm.
because they're much better at it
Yep.
than we are, and they can help you work that thing through. You just got to be vulnerable enough to go there. So as men, we feel like, hey, if I go to this tough place and I tell them how scared I am at work or about our situation, I'm gonna go to this bad feeling place. I know I don't process that well, and I'm gonna feel bad for the rest of the night. I just don't want to feel bad tonight.
Yeah.
So answer is fine. Yeah, just fine. Let's not go there. But the more you go there and realize, hey, you can get to that place and get back out to a better feeling place and move on with your night or your
Mhm.
day just as quickly. So just for guys, don't be afraid to show a little vulnerability, right? You don't have to be a superhero. You just
Yeah.
don't.
Because that's one thing I've actually learned in my relationship is almost to elaborate a little bit more, just
Right,
to like give more of the answer. And I mean, because like with my wife, I mean, she's amazing and she just kind of wants to be in the know. You
right,
know what I mean? Like a lot of
right.
times I'll know something, like it may have been like Trip and Olivia were pregnant. And like if I
Mhm.
didn't tell her that and she found out for somebody else, like, oh yeah, I knew that. They're like, you didn't tell me.
Right,
I'm like, I
right,
should have, my bad. And like
right,
those are just like simple things you learn
right.
as you go along. Just like give them more information.
Want to be along for the ride? Give them more information that is so critical because we're always trying to make informed decisions, right? And as we've seen over these last few years, especially in this country, there's a lot of us with a lot of bad information, right?
Hmm.
So,
Sure.
so that's the thing. So with your partner, right? The cool thing you just touched on was this: you never want to make them have to fill in the blanks, right? He said he was fine. What else is that going to mean, right? Because as humans, we're never going to fill in the blank with anything good, right? Oh, he sat
You're
on the
right.
couch. He turned his head away from me. He didn't make eye contact. He said he was just fine. So no person thinks in that situation, oh, he's fine. That means he likes the way I look today, and he likes what I, made for dinner today. And he likes the way I smell today. He likes the conversations we've had. That's
Hmm.
not what we fill in the blanks with. We fill in the blanks with, uh-oh, something's wrong,
Wrong.
right? And we immediately start to run the checklist of what it could be about me today that's not enough to have the person who I'm loving love me back, right? And
Sure.
so you never want folks to fill in the blank because we're going to fill it in with the nasty stuff, with the
Yeah.
ugly stuff, with the negative stuff about ourselves. So like you said, just give more information. Hey,
And I don't know, I forgot the percentage on this, but it's something like the stuff we manifest in our head that's might happen or is gonna happen. It's all like negative, like, is this gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? Like 99% of it doesn't happen, but we still like stress over it.
never happens.
With we've
Happen.
mentioned Trip, we've mentioned Rupert a little bit, and they're Crossroads, y'all. I mean, building an incredible company. It's already an incredible company,
Oh, yeah.
but you've been there. How long have you been there now?
Man, it's funny, man. So Rupert and I have had our journeys, our lives has kind of crisscrossed since day one. So we were in med school together, and then we did residency together, and then we were up in Greenville moonlighting together,
Hmm.
and then we were at the hospital right there in good old Carolina Center in Greenville
Yeah.
together, the psych hospital. So he started Crossroads at the same time I started doing my media stuff, and
Hmm.
it kind of took us in very different directions, but every now and then we would kind of come back. So I've worked at his facility in Greenville, one in Northwest Georgia, one in Charleston. There's one more I'm forgetting somewhere, like four along the way. And then it's interesting. So I'm home. We just got done shooting boot camp last year, and my phone rings and it's Rupert. I'm like, oh, what's
What's
up, man?
up, Rupe?
Right? It's like, right? He's like, are you in Greenville? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to grab some dinner? I'm like, sure. So then Rupert comes to me and he's like, Ish, I've got a very interesting situation, right? He's like, Crossroads is doing great. We got over 120 clinics and, we see over 26,000 people a day, right? And
Hmm.
that's fantastic. But the patients we're seeing has shifted, right? And it is, opiate use disorder is just a white disease, right? Black and brown folks are struggling too, and we're moving into some of those communities. He was like, but I have no idea how to get the folks the services that they need, right? And so I feel like he said this. I feel like I'm on a mission to end this opiate epidemic, and I want you to help me how to figure it out community by community. I was like, so let me get this straight. You call me up, invite me out to dinner downtown Greenville. to help you end the opiate epidemic. That's what you're telling
It's like a dang world
right?
issue right there.
Right? He was like, yeah, you got it exactly. Are you in? I was
So
like,
so we doing
yeah,
it or
I'm
what?
in. I'm in. And so I've been their newly installed SVP of Health Equity,
Mhm.
which simply means, Sam, that we believe everybody deserves a chance to be the healthiest version of who they are, right?
Yep.
I don't care where you're from. We live in America, right? I don't care where you're from. You're here now. I don't care how you look, right? Whatever money you make, right? Everybody deserves their best shot because you and I have been through things in life and we have figured out if we got our health, there's not much else we can't do,
Man,
right?
that's what I'm thankful for every day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Because if you've got that part, everything else is possible. And so that's the mission, right? To create this environment of health equity so that we can also influence those much better outcomes in life,
Mhm.
right? That's the mission, that's the goal. And in doing that, we attack those social determinants of health, right? What are those things that keep the folks who are not as healthy? What's keeping them out of the doctor's office, right? Well, a lot of times it's transportation.
Mhm.
A lot of times it's food insecurity, right? We we got to eat, so I don't have money for it, eating and a doctor's appointment, right? A lot of times they don't have a safe home environment, right? Is your house safe, right? Is your partner such that they're gonna not allow you to leave, or when you leave and come back, there's always an argument or there's always some issue, and so it's just easier to stay put and stay the same, right? Is it that? Do you have broadband? Do you have a phone that's got Wi-Fi on it? Because a
Yeah.
lot of times that's the thing, right? We're unplugged. Wi-Fi costs money,
Yeah.
right? And if we're impoverished, right, which is another one of those determinants, then we're making some very different decisions. There's a lot of folks out there who are making very different life decisions than some of us. Because if the decision is, hey, my kids get to have something to eat after school Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week, or I can keep the Wi-Fi on for the next couple of guys, and so that's an easy toss up, right? Kids got to eat, and so
Yeah.
we try to address those things in the community. We started off in Philly, and it's like every single day you realize how much more there is to do, but it's probably some of the most rewarding stuff I've ever done, man.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, it really is.
You mentioned, and those are, probably some of the bigger challenges, but, what have you seen are the
Mhm.
biggest challenges that y'all have been trying to tackle?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's the trust, right? So if you think about the patient population, so Crossroads, for folks who don't know, is one of the largest providers of substance use treatment in the country, right?
Mhm.
Over 120 plus facilities over 10 states, right? We're treating over 26,000 patients a day. So this is a very unique patient population, right? Obviously, we primarily focus on opiate use disorder, but we treat everything: alcohol abuse, whatever other substances you have on board. And so, if you or anybody in your life has ever been touched by that, you realize the stigma that goes along with it,
Oh, yeah.
the
Big.
shame that goes along with it. We have worked out in our minds that people are simply making a choice, right? And it's silly. It's like when somebody comes in with high blood pressure and their blood pressure is 190 over 120, we don't shame them
Mhm.
because they're choosing to have high blood pressure that day. Well, you should really do better. You should really right. It's ridiculous. Somebody's blood sugar is 300. It's not like, well, you should just really tell the pancreas to not do that. I mean, gosh, right? Right? It's a disease process, right? Right? It's right because it makes no sense. But we think because this is something more behavioral, we have a little more control over that choice, and we really don't.
Mm-mm.
And so I think a lot of us have who've lived with folks like that, who've struggled with it ourselves, have realized that when we show up at places, people aren't really happy to see us, right? Because they think we're going to ask for something. Maybe they think
Yep.
we're going to steal something. Maybe they don't want to associate us with whatever it is they think that a drug user is in their mind. And so Rupert started doing a really cool thing from day one. Folks walk in the door, and he'll look everybody in the eye and say, "Hey, I'm glad you're here." You know, and for
Something simple like that.
right, and for a lot of folks, man, it gives me goosebumps when I say it. That's the first time they've heard that in a long time.
And you talk about gaining trust, man.
Right,
It's like
right.
that instant connection of like, "Oh, man, this guy might care about me."
Right, right. This person may actually give a shit. This
Yeah.
person may actually believe in me that I can do this thing. And once they get that and those lights start to come on, and they're like, uh-oh,
They'll
right?
open up too.
Right, the world opens up, man. So it's so that's I think that's the biggest thing, just helping folks set that shame aside, right? Because it's not your fault. It's not right. The thing that was done to you, right? That childhood wound that you are now defending so vigorously with your drug of choice, whether it's a chemical thing, whether it's a social thing, whatever,
Hmm.
that wasn't your fault, right?
Yeah.
The dad who wasn't there, the person who was inappropriate, right? The teacher who shamed you, right? The kid, whatever that shaming event was, and most of us have it by the time we leave middle school, right? This shaming thing that just shuts down who we are. So whatever that was, it wasn't your fault, and the thing you did, the coping mechanisms you developed in defense to that, equally are not your fault, right? So let's take that and we're gonna put it in this box over here, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna put that on the shelf because right, that's not what we're here to do, right? And let's tell ourselves the truth about what's going on, and that's
Yeah.
the big thing, yeah.
All right, last question. Dr. Ish, legend. You've been incredible spending the time with me. And I bet you get this a lot, but I am curious. If somebody comes up to you, friend, family, somebody on the street, they're like, Dr. Ish, I know you're doing this, like, how can I help? What can I do? Like, how can I change my perspective? What do you tell them?
Yeah, yeah. How can they help with what?
Anything, like, just like really like, even it's like help raise awareness around mental health,
Hmm.
help, learn
Yeah.
about what you're doing at Crossroads. Is it,
Yes, yes,
is it,
yes.
what do you talk to them about?
Yeah, so it's I'm a country boy, man. I grew up in the country. We keep things real simple. You know what I mean? Right? So one of the things that we fail at on a daily basis, myself included, is we don't have the courage to be curious. Right? Just be curious. Huh? I wonder. I wonder why Sam's not feeling good today. Right? He said he was all right. He said all right, but that
Yeah.
didn't look like all right. I'm curious as to what that might be. Hey, Sam, are you sure? Because it didn't really look like that, right? You've got the courage to be curious, and that curiosity helps you ask the next question.
Yeah.
And from there, right? So, and there may not be a solution, but there may be nothing you can figure out, but it lends towards this thing we call understanding, right? I can understand. I think I understand a little bit better. I wish
Hmm.
I had a way to help you feel better, man. I don't, but at least I understand a little bit better. And with that understanding comes just a little bit more empathy,
Hmm.
right? Feeling with, hey, man, I hate that. I hate when I feel like that too. You know what I mean? Because we got an empathy
Sure.
deficit, man. And the less we know about each other, the easier it is not to care, right?
Hmm.
Easier it is just to write it off, you know.
Yeah.
And so just have the courage have the courage to be curious and just ask the next question. In your at work, with your partner, with your kids, right? Don't let your kids come home and scurry off to the ask the next question. Wait, hold on. Actually, what did happen? When y'all were doing those timetables, they tell me about it, right? Just, and we think it's going to take so long, right? Because
It
we're
doesn't.
busy, we don't have time. I got to get on Instagram, man. I'm right. All life is happening fast, right? It's coming at us fast, but it's literally going to take you 2 minutes.
Hmm.
It's going to take you 2 minutes. Let me leave you with a trick of mine. I use it with my patients. I use it in my relationships as well, right? You ask somebody a question about how they're feeling.
Okay.
For the next 18 seconds, you just be quiet.
Silence is hard.
It's hard. It makes us very uncomfortable, right? Because is this okay? Are they going to
Hmm.
say something mean to me? Are they going to think I'm weird, and then maybe that confirms for me that I'm not enough? No, we have all these rote conversations, but it stays on a superficial level because we think we're too busy to go deep. But if you take 18 seconds, right, and you just ask your partner, right, how are you feeling today? And then for the next 18 seconds, you don't say a word, you're going to be amazed
Hmm.
at the answer you get and the connection you feel. And from that connection, it's going to lead to that thing called belonging. And it's going to be like, huh, that was pretty cool.
Wow. Just
That,
something that simple is going to lead to it. And the curious and asking question thing's so true, because as I sat there and thought about it, if you just ask more questions, it might be that question where that person's like, man, you know what? I'm actually really struggling today.
right.
You know what I mean? Like that, it just might, they might answer that way. And then you could be saving a life. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
right,
that's
right.
simple, man.
The curiosity, right? Curiosity helps folks believe you care,
Mhm,
right? And a lot of us are just feeling really, really alone right now, you know. And it's like, does anybody care? Do I matter? Right? Everybody's got their own T-shirt saying who they are matters, right? But do I really? You
mhm.
know. And so that curiosity just lets folks know, okay, somebody actually cared enough to ask, and that thing, like you said, that could save a life, brother. It
Yep.
can.
Curiosity leading to connection.
Yep.
Dr. Ish, man, thank you so much for real coming on. It's been a
No, it was a
pleasure to
pleasure. It
have
was a
you.
pleasure.
It's been a lot of
Thanks so
fun,
much for
and
having me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'll list all your stuff in the show notes. I know you got a lot coming up,
Sure. Yep. Yep.
but for real, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
No, I mean, I enjoyed it, man. I appreciate you, Sam. Yeah, and shout out to Trip
That's right.
making it work.
Hey, thank you, man.
Yes,
Great
sir.
job.